She's a lot of things. She's complicated, she's self-destructive, cynical, but also has this like hope that just keeps building up inside of her, and everyone will see that throughout each episode. And she beats to the rhythm of her own drum. She's living in survival mode, and she's just a really, really incredible character that I'm very, very happy I get to portray her. Ty and Tandy definitely have this yin and yang situation happening, and it's actually pretty funny because I feel like I've never seen like a duo together who have this power where it's just their own, but for some reason when they use them together, something magical happens, and it's pretty great. I mean, I contract light daggers out of my hand, and Ty teleports, so it's kind of this like very interesting thing that they have going on together. Definitely feel like this show is more character-driven. It is very stylistic, and I think, you know, the way that we're developing these characters and telling their stories are from a very refreshingly raw and heartbreakingly honest place, and I think that that is what makes it so different from a lot of the other Marvel shows. New Orleans has been such a great place to film in. I mean, it has such a character to it, and it's also very stylistic in my opinion, and I think the way that we're shooting this as well is very stylistic. So to be able to be in a town that has so much, I don't know, like just character, and it's unique and it's special, and there's some kind of energy here that I think just like strikes an even better image and it visually for the show itself is pretty incredible, and I feel really grateful to like be in such a rad city that has brought so much to this show, and because it's based in New Orleans, it's awesome to actually film in New Orleans, and yeah, I love it here. Personally, I think the reason that I fell in love with this script and this story and these characters, and Tandy for that matter, is because they're coming from real, honest, and raw places in their lives, and everything that's happening in their lives, minus the power situation, is what's happening in this day and age and in this generation, and what they're going through is what people have, again, minus the power situation and that's happening, but it's what people are actually going through. And as a female, that Tandy goes through so much that she deals with so many things in her life, and to be as resilient as she is, and to hold her ground, and to stay confident in every single one of those situations is pretty powerful and pretty special. And I think a lot of females are gonna watch this show and be like, that is who I want to be, and also what I am.
Marvel's Cloak and Dagger is about two teenagers that go through this traumatic, devastating event that all starts with one night. And it ultimately leads to them acquiring these superpowers, and just also leads to them saving each other's lives. So it's these two kids that end up connecting out of nowhere, and through fate, later on in life, they connect again. And once they connect, they sort of figure out that they can't live without each other. As he first starts figuring out his powers, it's really it's really on whatever he's feeling, or what he's feeling in his heart. So he'll just teleport off of whatever he's feeling. The teleporting, it's crazy because just as Aubrey myself, like, I would want to teleport. Like, I feel like that's one of the most awesome, like, superpowers ever. So the fact that I was blessed to play, you know, Cloak himself is amazing. I think the one thing that sets it apart from other Marvel shows is the fact that the fans are going to come for the action and for the visual effects and the superpowers, and they're going to fall in love with the characters and really want to root for the characters. And I think that the writing is just so beautiful that our character work is amazing. And I think people are just going to come and want to see Tyrone and Tandy stories, you know? And then they're going to say, oh, they have powers too, you know what I mean? As an actor, you expect to obviously want the best roles, but this is the best job ever. And it's something that I didn't even dream of, you know. It's kind of one of those things that you don't even say, oh, hey God, you know, being a Marvel superhero would be really great, you know. It's just like, it happened. And when the audition came across, it's like, I have to do this. So I will never forget the fact that I am a Marvel superhero. You know, it's a start of a hopefully long career, but I will never forget that this is where I started. These kids get to see superheroes that look like them. They're their age. They're going through the same things that they go through, because not only do we talk about superpowers and like I said, police brutality and all that, we talk about teen angst and the anxiety that you just have as being a teen. Like, it's not only about them figuring out their superpowers, they're figuring out who they are as people, and they're figuring out who they are as humans. So I think it's gonna be great for these kids everywhere to just see themselves on TV.
I like to call him Cool Priest. I play Father Delgado, and Father Delgado is the big brother, Ty's big brother. That's kind of my relationship with him. He confesses a lot to me, you know, no pun intended, but he does confess at the school because I'm a counselor at the school. So he kind of sees me as that big brother. So I guess it's a fine line between, like, am I the cool big brother or am I the counselor? And that's the relationship we have with. I think it's more just beyond superhero and superpowers. We're just these kids trying to deal with today's society. So, I mean, who can't relate to that, and who wasn't a kid trying to figure things out, and especially being teenagers? And then you throw on their superpowers to that, and I mean, you create this crazy universe, you know?
Detective Bridget O'Reilly, she comes to New Orleans after something bad happens to her in New York. So she is from the NYPD, and she comes to New Orleans to kind of try and start again, and then she starts to notice corruption and a lot of bad things going on in the police department in New Orleans, and she is really determined to go up against that and to fight for justice. I think in terms of, like, I can speak for my character with Bridget, I think that she's a really determined woman, and she's come up against a lot of sexism in her career, and she really fights against that. And so I think in terms of young women watching, it's really awesome to have a strong, complicated female character, because you don't see that all the time. A lot of the time in television shows, I feel like a female character is kind of there to serve a male storyline, and they're not necessarily a full, fleshed-out human being. But Joe Pikatsky has not done that. You know, a lot of the females on the show, we do talk about how exciting it is to have a 3-page scene, and we're not talking about boys. We're talking about other things, and that's really exciting and really refreshing. And when I auditioned for the show, the breakdown that they wrote was the first breakdown I've ever written that didn't just talk about what she looked like. So that was really exciting as an actress.
Marvel's Cloak and Dagger is kind of a fascinating story. I love it because it's very human, you know, it's very character-driven. These two young people go through a very traumatic experience, and in trying to deal with it, or in their conflict in dealing with it, they discover these superpowers. They discover these powers, or these powers are given to them, let's say. And that really kind of dictate how they end up living their lives, you know, how their lives end up unfolding, and how they use these very specific powers in order to either help or hurt others. The Johnson house is a little bit of a troubled one in a way, and yet, of course, a very functioning one at the same time. You know, it's a number of years since the oldest son, of course, was killed, and that still always, I think, does resonates through a family, and that hole that's left never really can be filled. But Adina is, I think she's pretty incredible, frankly. She keeps it all together, or so we think. But no, Adina and Ty, it's a beautiful relationship in the way that, of course, with a teenage son, this mother, with just a teenage son on its own would be enough, but obviously still the effects of having lost, of this young boy having lost his older brother at such a young age, creates extraordinary concern and, you know, very much pause for Adina. There are great underlying messages in Marvel's Cloak and Dagger that I would draw on to these other messages. Do you know what I mean? Definitely about overcoming trauma, about families, how they survive or don't, about friendship, about, you know, young romantic love, about parents and their children and the complexities and the challenges and conflicts that arise on a daily basis. I think it's a terrific it's entertaining, of course, but I also think that the messages, if you want to use that word, or rather the stories, really are relatable to people of all ages because of those reasons.
I play Melissa Bowen, who is Tandy's mother, that is Dagger's mom. We have a very dysfunctional relationship. We are dealing with loss and grief and alcohol, I don't want to say addiction, but reliance on my part. And the two of us are trying to struggle through and find each other in a healthier way. This show is different than some of the other Marvel shows because we're starting off with our two superheroes just discovering their powers and really not knowing what's going on. And it's much more character-driven and them dealing with the loss in their lives, understanding what these powers are, why they're happening, how they happen, how they can harness it and control it. And it's about families and loss and redemption, trying to find hope in bad situations, trying to figure out exactly what did happen. There's mystery involved there as well. So I think it's just like a wonderful, complex drama masked in a Marvel superhero series. I hope that the viewers take away hope and redemption, and that no matter the struggles, the loss, the grief, the pain, the dysfunctional family relationships that teens, unfortunately, all of us have to struggle through, that through it, there's hope. With perseverance, with sort of looking within, looking without, trying to solve things, people can come together and join back up again.
Well, what makes Marvel's Cloak and Dagger unique is that you have these characters and they have these superpowers and all that kind of stuff, and which is great. You have that in a lot of shows. But what makes this show, without the powers, I think this would be a great show. There's these emotional ups and downs, these roller coasters. I think people will be really invested in the characters because their storylines are so rich and there's so much going on. It makes you sit forward and I go to set now to see, see the other characters. When I'm not working, I'm not filming, I'm just there because I'm just interested to know what's happening next and what's going on. So I think we're gonna give the people that, and they're gonna wanna see, and they're gonna care about the characters, and they're gonna wanna know what's happening next. So, good stuff.
The scripts are just really, really good. And from the very beginning of the pilot, you see this young girl and this young boy, and the young girl is filled with hope. And the young boy it literally says he's fearless. And then they have this traumatic experience that also is supernaturally bringing them together. And they are then left hopeless and totally afraid. And I think that it's really about that. It's about how do you find hope in a hopeless situation, and how do you find strength or bravery when you're in a terrifying situation for Tyrone. And I think what's really cool about this show is that you see these people trying to isolate themselves in order to solve their problems. And over the course of it, you learn that by opening up to somebody who really can understand you, that's when they start to actually see some real growth. I think what's going to keep people coming back is it's so surprising. But at the same time, it's not ever jumping the shark. The show is very intentional, and so everything that happens makes a lot of sense, the cause and effect of it all. But I'll think that I'll know even where Liam is going, and then I'll read the script and I was like, oh, that's totally different than what I thought, but it makes total sense.
The character I play in Marvel's Cloak and Dagger is named Detective Connors. He's essentially a bad guy in the show. He and Ty, something happens in their past, and then they reconnect, and basically he's doing everything he can to eliminate Ty and his existence in this world. He's not a good guy, and he will go to extremes to accomplish whatever he needs to make that happen.
I saw Olivia Holt's audition, and I knew she was the one, and it was very exciting to then get her in the room with Aubrey. And Aubrey she just brought something so different to his Tyrone. You could feel the weight that this kid had given his history and what he lost as a child. Olivia brought such incredible weight to Tandy, and that's when we put those two together, like, you want to feel, and I just wanted to keep watching them both. They both incredible chops, great chemistry. They were so beautiful together, and they just both have this innate vulnerability that makes you care about them. And a story like this, which is really about these two teenagers, these two broken souls who find each other and save each other, that's exciting for me as a filmmaker and the storyteller. And that we found the perfect Tandy and Tyrone just made everything great. It's really about these two people who met as kids, had this incredible experience, saved each other's lives without knowing how, and then going through life, both of them knowing that they should have died and something saved them, but not understanding what it was, and then to meet that person 8, 9 years later and know that you have some sort of connection but don't understand it, and then to come together and it them finding each other, really triggering the powers that they have. It's just, I mean, that's at its core, and that's what's exciting, that not only are we dealing with the regular teen angst, but on top of that, you know, now you have these powers that you don't understand, don't know where they came from, what you can do with them. So that's just a really cool dynamic that we get to play with these characters, and that, again, I don't think has really been explored in the Marvel Universe.